And I want to bring in my guest because she can't stay long. I deeply appreciate her for coming on. We're joined with Anna Guh. I think I'm getting that right this time around. I think.
Yes, it's getting better.
Yes. Thank you. I'm trying. Reporter for CGTN, radio, TV. Anna, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for this invitation. And I really enjoyed our conversations and reading everyone's comments afterwards. And I really appreciate your fans' understanding and support for my viewpoints.
Oh, they loved you. They loved you. I'm sorry, there's construction here. It is deeply aggravating that there is. As I
No
was pointing
worry.
out to my audience, the two big stories that were coming out was A, Trump failed against Ansar Allah, and the scale of that failure, like put out in the New York Times for everybody to read. But he also failed in a trade war. And I was looking over what they effectively agreed to. This is the document that points it out. Joint statement. And ultimately, the U.S. is going to drop theirs tariffs by 24%. The U.S. China is going to drop theirs by 24%. But keep in mind, Trump had his up to like 145%, some insane number. Okay, well, that's down to 30%. And China's is down to 10%. I'm sorry, the other way around. The U.S. is down. Yeah, that's right. China's down to 10%. The U.S. is at 30%. That's not a win. That's not a win, especially if you're going to start a trade war willy-nilly. You didn't damage the Chinese economy in the way that you thought you did. Donald Trump was the first to blink, meaning he was out there. I'm talking to Xi Jinping. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not on the phone with anybody. His own trade reps pointed it out. Scott Bessent, his Commerce Secretary, behind the scenes, talking to investors like, we can't keep this up. And even beyond the trade war with China, with the rest of the world, he had to come down, all those tariffs down to 10% almost immediately within the first few days when the bond market started to flip out. This is a failure. Give me your take on this. Give me your point of view on this.
First, I want to share a few interesting observations from me. One thing that really stood out is that even before any official joint statement or detailed agreement was released, many Western, especially American media outlets were quoting the Chinese side more frequently than their own officials. I think that says something, right? It seems even the American press is finding Chinese statements more credible, or at least more concrete than what's coming from their own top leaders. And second, I want to mention is that while this round of talks was treated as a major event in the United States with wall-to-wall analysis and speculations in the media, it drew a more cold response here in China. That's because the spotlight was shifted elsewhere. President Xi Jinping was visiting Russia, and that has been the central focus over the past 2 weeks, and the future of China-Russia relations and how the two countries may deepen cooperation is generating more public and media interest. Even as U.S.-Russia tensions have cooled somewhat these days, the joint statement from China and Russia made it clear that their position on resisting U.S. tariff remain closely aligned. And I think China is sending a very clear signal here. That is, we are more focused on deepening friendly ties and mutually beneficial cooperation with other countries rather than engaging in a confrontation of any kind. And we are confident that well prepared on the talk, and we know that the United States want us more than we want them at this point. So, and also back to the talk between China and the United States, is particularly noteworthy that after the joint statement was issued, the Ministry of Commerce of China they emphasize the need to strengthen export controls on strategic minerals, considering them critical to national security and development interests. Not only did they stress the need to enhance port inspections and crackdown efforts, but they also called for digging deeper into illicit entities and smuggling networks behind the scenes. And they vowed to strictly and swiftly investigate illegal cases, continually improving the effectiveness and of export control enforcement. So there is also a very clear signal sent out between China and Europe. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention this is an agreement between China and Europe. So on the same day, China also issued its first white paper on national security. The white paper stated that China coordinates its own security with common security, opposing the overexpansion of the concept of security. He also highlighted that anti China forces are relentlessly pursuing strategies of containment, suspension, and encirclement, but China is confident in resisting external security threats. At this point, I think many might smile knowingly and better understand China's achievements in this ongoing smokeless trade war. And I think China is very confident in the trade war with the United States, and that is very evident. And especially, I want to mention because a lot of people discussing who wins the war. First, there's no winner between no winner in this in any war, whether it's trade war or any a hot war. But I think, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, the deal with China seems more like Washington's surrender than a victory, because according to calculation, the tariff rollback negotiated with China is worth around 300 billion in tariff reductions, essentially a large-scale tax cut. So I think this 90-day pause prevents what seemed like an imminent economic collapse in the US, maybe in China as well, because China also don't want to lose its benefits from the import and export trade with other countries, especially with its biggest trading partner, the United States. But good news at this point, I think, is American consumers don't have to worry about shortages of goods in that period. And also for that part in China, the trade, export and import trade sectors, they don't have to worry about job losses in this area. So I think so. But here are also a lot of reports from Chinese experts. They believe China has had not yet taken such has not yet taken very strong countermeasures. So that the United States surrendered a little bit earlier than we expected. So in that perspective, I think many say China is clearly the big winner in this round of a tariff dispute.
Yes, I know in China they play Go. I play chess. I live in the United States. We believe in zero sum. The US lost, just like countries lose wars. And the reason why I say that is Donald Trump came out with the sole specific purpose of dominating the globe, believing that the US, 4% of the population, could dominate and pacify the entire globe, including a country of 1.3 billion people. And he wasn't able to do it. And in a very short period of time, he rolled back the tariffs. And then he's out there screaming for help from Europe, from other countries, to gang up on China. That didn't work. And so he, at a certain point, realized, oh my God, I'm stuck. And he's like, oh, I'm talking to Xi Jinping. Oh, we're going to talk to China and everything else. And he rolled back, if you remember, the tariffs on electronics, which China used as an in order to say, okay, maybe we can de-escalate what this is. That's a loss. He should have never done it in the first place. Like, meaning, even if he wants to define an issue, that was nonsense. It was just ludicrous what he effectively did. And you make the point of saying in China, this wasn't the key thing that they were talking about or thinking about, because I get the sense it hadn't necessarily hit China in the way that it was hitting the United States. I mean, our prices were going up. Empty shelves were going to take place next month. Stores like Target, Walmart, hell, Amazon was talking about putting a tariff price so people could see how much they were paying extra over top. Like, it was significant here. I don't get the sense it was that significant in China, though.
That's a very good point. Still, I think this wasn't a very really new thing for China, and the Chinese government is well prepared for this round of trade dispute. And I think here I want, because earlier you mentioned about Washington is trying to seek help from its allies and other partners around the world. But I think that's this tariff war actually pushed other countries away from the United States, because China continues to focus on developing itself and its partnership, or as they say, preparing the table. Because this week, a ministerial meeting took place in Beijing at the forum between China and the community of Latin America and the Caribbean states. Many Latin American countries attended the forum, and China announced the plans to provide 9.2 billion US dollars in credit funds to Latin America and the Caribbean nations. Brazilian President Lula was in Beijing, is in Beijing, where China increased its investments in Brazil, focusing on agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and e-commerce platform, etc. And both countries made recent plans for cooperation in various sectors for the next 5 years. And the president of Colombia, they confirmed that Colombia would join the Belt and Road Initiative. What I want to say here is that at different times, the US has threatened these countries, especially Brazil and Colombia, not to develop closer trade ties with China. But I want to highlight that many countries are now turning to China for various forms of cooperation, largely because they lack trust in the current US government's policy. There are a lot of unpredictability and ever shifting stances from from the White House. So the U.S. has unilaterally torn up many agreements with countries in Africa, Latin America, and Canada, Mexico, etc. So at this point, to them, a reliable and a stable trade partner has become a crucial pillar for many countries. So China has proven over the past few decades that it can be a trusted partner when that doesn't change its principles without reason. So Washington may try to shape uncertainty, to steer negotiations to win win a trade talk with its partners. But in reality, this so-called negotiating tactic or art of deal has not resulted in gains. Instead, it has pushed more countries away.
Yeah, no country wants this notion of sovereignty being overstepped, and no country wants to be bullied. I don't know any country that would accept that as a sovereign nation. Also, Europe. Donald Trump has been out there trashing Europe like horrendously at his press conference. Europe and China have also started to get closer together, cutting, if I'm not mistaken, the tariff on cars and so forth. Could you go into that for me? And Europe is supposed to be meeting with China, or the European leaders are supposed to be meeting with China on issues of trade, correct?
Yes, I think China is not just Europe; is all other countries besides the United States, because after this talk, one cannot help but say that the U.S. has truly redefined the words of substantive, in their relationship with other countries. Because if we look back in 2018, the United States claimed that both sides between China and the United States had made substantive progress, but later. Just days later, Trump tore up that agreement with a single tweet. And back in 2019, they again achieved substantive progress, which led to signing of the first phase trade agreement earlier the following year. But as time passed, it became clear that the U.S. violated its obligations under such agreement, and these issues were all outlined in China's recent white paper, China's position on China-U.S. economic and trade relations. So if your fans want to dig that paper, you can go on the Chinese website to Google that. And after all these reviews, do you think China would still trust the United States that much? I don't think so. And that's also why China and the European Union and other countries, they are seeking new ways to establish new channels to, to avoid that more connections between their country and the United States, because it would hurt more than they can benefited from.
Yeah.
And yes, and and analysts believe that this kind of struggle has not only taught the lesson to the United States, but also to all the players in the international community. And also, this is a very good opportunity that prove that China's strategy of focusing on, manufacturing and self-development and cooperation and a win-win cooperation between other countries is correct. So I think beyond, any zero sum talks, or you are my friend and your friend, your enemy is my friend. Beyond all those talks, I think all the countries, they still want to peace and prospers in their country. So that's why you see more countries are finding rational ways to establish new cooperation between with China and with other countries worldwide.
Last question, and I'll let you go. The rare earth minerals thing. Rare earth minerals are often used in military equipment. Is China concerned that the U.S., especially on the issue of Taiwan, is becoming more and more provocative, in which case it's trying to put pressure and to prevent that, let's say, make the U.S. think again in this regard?
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I talked about this last time. China still holds a lot of cards in this trade dispute, or any political against any political oppression from the United States. But Washington toolbox looks increasingly empty, and that's why we are seeing that the United States is trying to get in touch with China. So Beijing has not opted to, sell enough U.S. Treasury bonds, for example, a move that could seriously destabilize global markets. That's why China is not opting for that. It has not halted all rare earth exports to the United States, even during the Trump's tariff turmoil against the world, even though China controls the vast majority of global rare earth production. These powerful options remain on the table, unused for now at least, likely because China still hopes to, leave room for cooperation between China and the United States. But ultimately, it's up to Washington to decide whether to walk back or keep doubling down. So I don't think Washington will that easily to use the Taiwan card against China. They know that is the red line.
Red line, yeah.
Yeah.
Anna, thank you for this. I greatly appreciate it. Anna Guh, I think I'm getting it right. Guh.
Yes, you are getting better.
I'm trying. CGTN TV reporter, thank you for this. I deeply appreciate it. You be safe, okay?
Thank you very much.
You have a good one. Bye-bye. Oh, she is fantastic. She had a prior appointment, so she had to leave a little bit early today. I deeply appreciate her for coming on.